Hey, so I made this game for the CTJS yearly game jam, and I actually had a lot of fun with figuring out how to make this work the way I wanted it to. And I ran into some interesting challenges, and I wanted to share that. So, firstly, this is a game about you being a cat in the Prohibition era, and you're trying to find information to get into Speakeasy. So it's about exploration and talking to people and combining clues together to find a way into the Speakeasy, and also just finding it. It's a big area. So one of the things I had to worry about were the roofs. Now I wanted roofs because I wanted it to be a surprise when you go into a building, what's inside of it. I didn't want it to be all visible. And that involved colliding with the character. It was actually pretty simple. I had a lot more complicated version of this where it would do fade in, fade out transitions, but for reasons I'll explain later, that didn't work out very well. The roofing logic is pretty simple. You collide with the cat, your main character, it will disappear. Just instant disappears and appears. Now, the issue is this room in particular. This is the mouse room. It doesn't have a roof. It used to, and I had to remove it because the maximum collision size that I was allowing for it, all the objects in the game, it was not large enough to handle a roof that the singular object as big as this. Now, in the project settings for the place cat mod, that's the cat mod that handles all the collision, you can increase that size. The problem is it's already pretty laggy with the number of objects I added in the game. So if I increase this grid size number, it's just gonna make things even worse. And I didn't want to redesign this room really. So the mice just don't have a roof here. So I had to get rid of that roof for that, and I had to get rid of the fade in, fade out animations when you walked over the tiles. But again, I'll explain that later. Now, the real most challenging part of this game is making the game feel larger than it is. And in order to do that, I decided to make it expand infinitely in all directions, or at least give the illusion that you can just keep walking in one direction forever. So to demonstrate that, let me go find an NPC that's running around. So there's intersections you can use to orient yourself, but you see this blue cat's running south. I'm gonna run north, and eventually I'm going to run into him again. So, oh, there's Jimmy. So if you walk in one direction, in any direction, you'll eventually end up back where you started. So the whole world wraps around itself, and it's pretty seamless because obviously I didn't make infinite objects, but I really wanted this feature in the game to make the world seem bigger. Now, there were some issues I had to work through. So if you were to walk, well, first of all, this is the origin point for the boundaries that I made. So if you were to walk past this line, I wanted it to wrap your character around so that you ended up on the far right side of here. You can see, if I zoom out here, actually, all of these corners are the same building, and this top row is the same as the bottom row of buildings, and this first column of buildings are the same as the last column of buildings. That's so I could have it so that when you get teleported to the other side of this map, there was still, you were still positioned as if you were over here. It gave the illusion that nothing really changed when you teleported. And the wrapping behavior, it's literally a behavior script. So this is something you can just apply to any template you want. So I just have this script that checks your position, and if you're too far outside the boundary, it'll warp you back into the area, basically. And this behavior I applied to the main character and to all of the mouse, dog, and cat characters. And so that part was easy. And this wrapping part was actually why I had to remove the fade in animations for the roofing. So let's say you're right here. You're right at the edge of the boundary. If you were to walk just a bit left, you would end up at the duplicate building on the far right side. But this has a roof also, and this roof is visible when you walk over there. I had to remove the animations for that, so it was just an instantaneous transition, so it wouldn't have any jarring effects like that, and I just didn't have the time to really make that work well. As for the NPCs, there is an issue on the boundaries with them as well. You have a character that walks past this line, it will look like it will disappear because he jumped over to the other side if you're sitting at the edge. Or if you're standing and you walk over to the left past this boundary, it will look like the NPC disappears because you teleported over there. Or maybe an NPC will, randomly appear because he's over here where you jumped to. So in order to solve that issue, I had to actually duplicate NPCs and position them smartly so that they appeared no matter where you went. If you walk on one boundary and end up on the other side, there's a copy of that NPC still there. In order to do that, I have 3 clones for some of these NPCs. I have a horizontal clone, a vertical clone for the 2 directions, and then there's actually a literal corner case scenario where if you are on the corner of 2 boundaries, you can get to a position where neither the horizontal clone or the vertical clone is visible. So I had to add a corner clone. Now, I did not make those clones for every one of these characters. Like these ones in the center here, they're not at the edge, so you cannot possibly get to a position where you're on the boundaries and you're going to see them disappear or appear because they're too far away. You see the box here is actually the viewport. So it's really just anything that's near the boundaries and near the size of this viewport that I had to make clones for. And I'll show you how I did that in a moment, because that leads into custom properties. So I have all these characters, and really it's all just 3 templates. It's mostly just 3 templates: the mouse, the cat, and the dog character. So in order to make all these different types of NPCs but only have like 3 different templates to work with, I had a couple extra mice here, but that's really about it. I used CTJS's custom properties. So you can actually inject custom properties into any of these copies you place into the room editor. So if I select this mouse, for example, yeah, okay. I can set the message here. I can set some behavior properties that I defined. So this is saying this character can roam around about 128 pixels left and right, and then vertical top and bottom. Set clothes tints. Every one of these characters, their clothes will get tinted a certain color. That's what this clothes tint property is for. There's a couple of them with more properties than others. This blue shirted runner here, this one has a name. So I have a name property here. Got a message, it has a move speed, I can change how fast he runs. And then here's that makes clones property. So any one of these NPCs that are near or are going to cross the boundary, they use this, they have this property set to true, and that's how the game knows whether it should make copies of them. If I go to create script here, this is really where it all happens, where it takes in those custom properties. It's inside this weird function because I need to make sure the clones also have those custom properties copied. So it's just a little weird how I wrote it here. But you can see here, for example, the clothes tint getting set. I actually have a separate template for this. So the mouse clothes aren't exactly just on this template. I actually have a sprite and a template that's just rendering the mouse clothes. So I changed the tint value of this, and then I overlay this on top of the mouse character. And if I go to the textures, there's also clothes for the cat. In this case, that's also the ears get colored. And then the dogs, they don't really change. It's more so the neckties that get changed because all of their shirts I kept white. So there's our neckties colored. I think considering my constraints, I did pretty well. I wish it was a little more performant for the web build I made, but these are all the challenges I ran into. Alright, that's it.